Have you ever witnessed a family come apart, not gradually, not quietly, but right before your eyes, with cameras rolling, smiles fading, and the truth slipping through forced expressions? That's exactly what we've seen unfold with the Brown family on Sister Wives. What once appeared to be a united, faith-centered household, with 4 women sharing one husband and raising over a dozen children, has steadily unraveled into a landscape marked by mistrust, emotional distance, and deep-rooted hurt. And yet somehow, one person always seems to emerge unscathed. Welcome back to the channel, friends. If you've been following this emotional roller coaster like I have, then you know the fractures started forming long before Christine made her exit. Now the masks are off. The illusion of unity has crumbled, and the raw, unfiltered reality is in plain sight. Favoritism, manipulation, emotional neglect, and a quiet power shift that's left nearly everyone else behind. Before we dive into the details, be sure to subscribe if you're here for candid commentary and truth without the sugarcoating. And don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. Because what's happened to this family isn't just a made-for-TV storyline. It's something far more relatable and far more real. Before just maybe not this raw or this public, when Robyn first joined the Brown family, she came in with soft smiles, teary eyes, and a carefully measured gentleness that at first glance seemed like humility. Kody lit up like a Christmas tree the moment he met her, and that alone told us something big was about to shift. At the time the wives were doing the hard work, Christine, Janelle, and Meri had been in the trenches for years, building lives, raising kids, managing finances. But suddenly the attention shifted. Kody wasn't just in love, he was infatuated. Robyn didn't just join the family. She entered like a carefully crafted solution to every one of Kody's emotional grievances. She cried when things were hard. Sure, but she always cried in Kody's direction. Every disappointment became a moment for her to appear vulnerable, feminine, misunderstood. And that worked because Kody wasn't looking for another equal. He was looking for validation, and Robyn gave him that in spades. Then came the legal marriage, under the pretense of adopting her children. Robyn and Kody legally wed a move that instantly shifted the power dynamic. Because let's be real, once that legal tie was in place, everything else started revolving around her. Decisions that once required consensus started happening with Robyn quietly in the background, and Kody standing at the front, but clearly echoing her voice. And while she publicly insisted she didn't want to be the favorite, her actions told a very different story. The other wives, they started slipping further and further into the background. Christine lost her spark, the one we saw so brightly in the early seasons. Janelle, always level-headed and rational, began to look more and more isolated. And Meri's silence said more than any monologue ever could. One by one, they began questioning their place, while Robyn's place became increasingly secure. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was steady. Emotional distance grew. Robyn and Kody's home became the unspoken headquarters, the safe house, the calm house, where kids weren't allowed to go unless certain conditions were met. And it was Robyn setting those terms, not just as a mother, but as a gatekeeper to Kody's presence. Let's be honest, she knew how to play the long game. Robyn mastered the art of appearing cooperative, while quietly repositioning the center of the entire family around herself and her children. She played by the church rules when it suited her, and she emphasized obedience and doing things the right way, which just happened to always validate her position. Meanwhile, the rest of the family was forced into reactive mode, always adjusting, always justifying, always one step behind the new reality they hadn't agreed to, but were already living in. And just like that, Robyn wasn't just the newest wife. She was the center, Not because she asked for it directly, but because she made sure everything slowly turned in her favor. If you go back and watch the early seasons of Sister Wives, Kody Brown looked like a dad who wanted to be everything to everyone. He was running from house to house arms, always full sometimes, with groceries, sometimes with a baby. And for a while, it looked like he was trying, but somewhere between Robyn joining the family and the move to Flagstaff, that version of Kody faded away what we got. Instead, a man who became emotionally closed off, defensive, angry, and frighteningly selective about which children he actually showed up for. You didn't need a narrator to tell you which kids got priority. Just watch the screen. Robyn's children, especially Aurora and Brianna, got the emotional bandwidth. They had the structured visits, the one-on-one talks, the safe home. Meanwhile, Janelle's boys were treated like outsiders in their own family Gabe, and Garrison, who once had a close bond with their dad, slowly became symbols of everything Kody didn't want to deal with: questions, resistance, accountability. The tension between Kody and his sons didn't appear out of thin air. It built over time, but during the pandemic it exploded. Kody enforced strict rules that, let's be real, seemed tailor-made to isolate everyone except Robyn's household. Gabe and Garrison were expected to cut off their entire social lives, jobs, friends, all, so they could maybe see their father, if Robyn deemed it safe. And when they didn't comply, what did Kody do? He withdrew. He stopped showing up. He called them disrespectful. He stopped being their dad. The scenes with Garrison were some of the hardest to watch. You could see him struggling. That was a young man, desperate to feel seen, to feel like he mattered. And Kody dismissed it as rebellion. He told the cameras that his sons owed him an apology. Not once did we hear him say, "Maybe I got it wrong." And it broke something, not just between father and son, but in the viewers too. It became clear this wasn't just bad communication. This was emotional abandonment. Then there was the heartbreaking moment with Gabe, when he told the story about how his dad forgot his birthday. And not just forgot, Kody called him on that very day and didn't even realize what it was. That silence, that blank look in Gab's eyes as he said it, that wasn't just disappointment. That was grief. Grief over the living, grief over a dad who was still alive, but had emotionally left the room a long time ago. And while all this was happening, Robyn's kids remained shielded. They weren't getting cut off. They weren't being called disrespectful. They were still part of the inner circle, still receiving Kody's attention, still worthy of his presence. That contrast was so loud, it was deafening. What happened wasn't just favoritism, it was emotional neglect, dressed up as discipline. Kody slowly stopped being the father to the whole family and started being the protector of one household, and the rest left behind to pick up the pieces. If you listen closely to Robyn Brown's words across the seasons, you'll notice something subtle and honestly kind of genius in how calculated it is. She rarely frames herself as in charge. She's not the boss. She's not the problem. She's the misunderstood one, the one who just wants peace, the one who's always crying or almost crying about how hard this all is. But behind that soft voice and the trembling lip, there's been a long pattern of Robyn bending the family dynamic in her favor while insisting she's just trying to hold it all together. It's hard to forget the tears, or better said, the lack of actual tears. Those emotional breakdowns she has in confessionals, where her voice shakes and her face crumples, but nothing falls. No tears, just a show of vulnerability. Now, I'm not here to say someone's emotions are fake, but when it happens, every time she's criticized or every time Kody gets backlash, it starts to feel less like grief and more like deflection, because every time Robyn cries, the subject conveniently shifts away from accountability and onto how hard this is for her. Remember how she used to say, I just want the family to be close again, or I just want us to live our faith the right way that became her anthem, and at first it sounded noble. But let's look at what she actually did during the move to Flagstaff. Robyn was the last one to agree, the last one to pack, and yet somehow the only one who ended up in a large rental that was move-in ready. While the rest of the wives were scrambling, Christine and Janelle were left in limbo. Meri was barely part of the conversation, and Kody was practically living at Robyn's house before the dust even settled. So how did the one wife who wasn't sure end up the most comfortable, you tell me? Then there was the whole Coyote Pass land division that meeting, where the wives sat down to talk about how the property would be split, and somehow magically Robyn and Kody already had their plan figured out: 4 acres for Robyn, 4 acres for Janelle and Meri. She'd get the leftovers if anything. Robyn said she didn't want special treatment. She claimed she wanted fairness, but fairness would have meant Meri got her equal piece, and yet that never happened. And Robyn didn't push for it either. She just stayed quiet, acting like she had no say, while the deal clearly favored her. Another example when Meri was still desperately trying to remain in the family, showing up, staying loyal, hoping to be seen. Robyn would say things like, "I want to be closer to her," and then nothing, no follow-through, no calls, no real relationship. She made those promises on camera, then let them die off screen. It was all about image. It looked like she wanted unity, but her actions told a different story. Robyn has built a very careful persona. She presents herself as the peacemaker, the loyal wife, the one trying to save the family. But what we've seen season after season is someone who quietly sets the stage so that she always ends up center, always ends up safe, always ends up favored. And when she's called out, the tears come, the victim mask slips on, and suddenly she's the one who's under attack. It's not loud, it's not aggressive, but it's incredibly effective. Robyn's power doesn't come from screaming or demanding. It comes from control disguised as compliance. And it's that quiet manipulation that has slowly restructured the entire Brown family around her. By the time it all really fell apart, the writing had been on the wall for years. The Brown family, once hailed as this ideal of plural marriage, unity, faith, shared love, had slowly, painfully crumbled, and not from some outside scandal. This wasn't about legal trouble or media pressure. It was internal. It was emotional, and it all came down to neglect, favoritism, and the slow but steady elevation of one wife above the rest. Christine was the first to walk away, and when she did, it hit like a thunderclap. But what made it so heartbreaking was how long she'd held on, how hard she'd fought to matter all those years. She swallowed her pain, raising her kids almost entirely on her own, while watching Kody pour his time, affection, and energy into Robyn and her children. She was the wife who kept smiling through rejection, who stayed loyal through indifference, and in the end, she realized loyalty wasn't love. She left not because she stopped loving Kody, but because she finally realized he had stopped loving her. A long time ago, Janelle followed, and in a way, Janelle's breaking point was even more painful. She was the steady one, the practical one. She didn't need grand gestures, just basic respect. But when her sons Gabe and Garrison were cast aside by Kody during the pandemic, she saw what many fans had already seen. Kody was no longer interested in being a father to anyone outside Robyn's household. The way he dismissed their feelings, gaslit their experiences, and then blamed her for standing by them, that was the final straw. Janelle knew what healthy boundaries looked like, and she walked. Then there's Meri, the original first wife, the one who had already survived the catfishing scandal, the emotional distance, the public humiliation. She stayed through it all, hoping, waiting, holding on to whatever scraps of connection Kody would give her. But what did she get? Coldness, passive aggression, indifference so deep that even Robyn couldn't justify it anymore. And when Meri finally announced she was done, it was quiet, it was dignified, but it was decades overdue. So, where does that leave Kody and Robyn now? Together but not unified, not victorious. They're sitting in the wreckage of the family. They said they were trying to protect all that control, all that manipulation, and now it's just the two of them, and even that doesn't seem stable. Look at Robyn in the tell-alls. Watch her body language. She used to lean into Kody with pride, always the doting wife. Now her shoulders are tense. Her expressions are strained. There's no joy in being the last one standing when everyone else has walked away. And the perfect wife act, it's cracking. She sobs about wanting the family back, but she was silent when it could have made a difference. She stayed quiet when Christine was hurting. She didn't fight for Gabe or Garrison. She let Meri fade into the background. And now she cries for the cameras, not for the family. The myth of unity is dead. The Brown family is no longer a family, at least not in the way they tried to sell it. And Kody and Robyn, they're left with the truth they helped create. It was never about unity. It was about control. And now with no one left to control, they have to face what's really there between them or what's not. You know, watching this whole unraveling not just as a fan, but as a human being, it's honestly heartbreaking. What happened in the Brown family isn't just drama for TV. It reflects something so real: favoritism, manipulation, emotional neglect. These are things that tear real families apart every single day. And when you're watching it happen in a family that once claimed to be all about love, faith, and unity, it just hits different. I think what hurts the most is seeing how long the other wives tried, how long they kept believing that if they just worked harder, stayed quieter, or showed more loyalty, they'd finally matter again, and yet nothing changed. The more they gave, the more they disappeared, and through it all, Robyn stood there, polished, emotional, always just misunderstood enough to avoid blame, always crying, always saying she wanted peace, but peace never came. Not for the other wives, not for the kids who were left out in the cold. Only Robyn got that peace because in the end, she got exactly what she wanted: Kody all to herself. And here's what really gets me. We, the audience, we saw it even when the show tried to smooth things over. Even when the narrative felt scrubbed and rehearsed, we saw the pain in Christine's eyes. We heard the strength in Janelle's voice when she defended her sons. We noticed Meri sitting quietly at the edge of every scene, barely acknowledged. We watched the favoritism. We heard the gaslighting. We weren't fooled. So now I want to ask you, is Robyn really the victim she claims to be? Or has she been quietly pulling strings behind the scenes all along? Was she just going along with things? Or was she strategically stepping over the other wives while keeping her hands clean? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear what you think. Were we watching a love story or a takeover? Because from where I'm sitting, this doesn't look like the dream they sold us. It looks like the fallout of one man choosing one woman and letting everyone else burn. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this breakdown. If you found this video insightful and authentic, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give it a thumbs up. It truly helps support the channel. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please share your perspective in the comments below. Until next time, take care of your heart, trust your instincts, and remember, you deserve to be seen, heard, and valued.